So I know it's summertime, but I'm doing kind of a springy craft today. I was looking at this little fairy house that has the watering can on top, and I don't even know where the little watering can came from, but I see all the little rust around there, and I just think it's really cool because I think this was actually just because of, wear and tear. I don't think it was made that way to have fake rust. On the inside, you kind of see a lot of it in there, and you notice where it gathers and the little cracks and where it was put together, kind of on the little, on the seal and in the edges here and on some of those. So I wanted to kind of make a little like a fake patina on something like this, and I found somebody selling these online, a whole bunch of these, so I bought a pack of them. And they come in purple, but that's not really the color I wanted. So just to make it the color that I needed, I went and used this apple barrel gloss paint, and I painted the purple one, which you can still kind of see where I scratched a little bit. There's a little bit of purple showing. So I just painted over it with a coat of black all over and made sure to get in all the little cracks and everything. And I have in my palette some colors ready to go here, but I got 4 colors in there. No, it doesn't really look like it because that's a messy palette, but I do have these colors in there, so I've got just sort of a mix, and I'm going to see what combination works best for me. But I've got a couple metallics, the teal and then the green, and then a couple for that patina look, something that, I don't know, just looks a little bit like natural rust and a little something growing on there. So I have this really bright color here, and both of these are the same finish. And this one's like a rusty color, so I've got the teal and the rusty color. But this one's called Spanish Tile, this one's called Native Turquoise, and both of them have like a glossy finish, just the same as this, kind of a shine to it when it's done. So I will use a couple different brushes and just kind of try to focus on the areas of the watering can, like in the same areas where it gathered rust on this one that I saw. So I'll do something with that, and then just kind of see, and kind of maybe just spread it on there, or maybe tap it on wherever I feel like will give it the most natural look. I don't like to use a whole lot of paint when I do this because I sort of want it to dry fast, and I want to be able to put it on layers. And if I do like it where I put it, I can end up putting some more on and make the color a little bit more bold. So I just kind of went around those edges and those little areas wherever, something, maybe water would naturally gather, and thinking that's probably where some rust would set in because that's where, it would stay wet. So I probably put a little too much on, a little more than I want. But I like how it looks there, just a little bit. But I am going to go over it again, I'm going to avoid these smooth areas because I figured that area would not, oh, if my finger left a print there, that area probably wouldn't get a whole lot of rust there unless this was like laying on its side or something. And then wherever I feel like I want it to really show some more rust, I might just tap on a little more, maybe a little bit thicker now that I know what it's going to look like and I know if I like it. Maybe a little bit under here too. And then if you end up putting too much, at least your background color for the whole thing is black, so you can easily cover over it with that black paint. And that is a really good black paint. It's nice and thick, so I'll just keep going around adding a little bit, and then I think after this is when I'll tap on some of that teal color. Once I figure out how much color I want on there, then I'll come back in maybe and cover some of those spots back over with the black. But with a really dry brush, it's kind of cool because you can just sort of just do these light wispy little touch-ups here and there, and it will just make it look a little bit, I don't know, just worn. Kind of makes it look old without putting a whole bunch of color on there. I'm just kind of, I don't know, just rubbing the dry brush on there, but it still has a little bit of color in it. So I just like the look that gives it. It kind of makes it look scratched up and a little bit old. I'm not going to worry too much about the inside either. Now, this part seems a little weird, but I'm kind of dabbing some of this with a clean brush now that only has a teal on it. This isn't the metallic, this is just regular teal. I'm just kind of dabbing some around, maybe brushing it a little bit on there. And then I'm using my finger to just smear it on there so that way it gets a really thin coat of it, and it just sort of looks like maybe this is just something that's just very lightly growing all over the whole thing. And I'm just kind of wiping it off. You can't wipe all of it off, so even if it feels like you've kind of dried it off completely, you're still seeing a lot of that black showing through. And I'm just kind of letting some areas kind of stay, or right here I'm not really going to mess with that because I like that. I like that some areas have the brighter, thicker paint that just sort of went into some of the holes and stuff, like right there, and I might even do it again. but like to leave it like that, I don't know, it doesn't look very realistic to me, so I just kind of wipe some of it off so you can still see that little, whatever that is there that's holding it together. So I just go around and do that everywhere, maybe a little bit on here. No, but don't leave it where you can see the brush strokes. Just kind of come in there and clean it up, wiping it off with your hands. And you do this wherever you feel like it should have a little bit of this, like this, bright green patina look on there. And there, I really like how it kind of gathered in the crack there on this part here. It just sort of stays a little brighter in that area, and then everywhere else it can be very faint. All right, really cool. Maybe a little bit here, just kind of maybe let some of it go into those holes at the top. We won't be able to get it all out. You can still see the rust color in the background, which is so cool. And there, just like that. Yeah, I just have to keep going around, maybe do the handle part, but this is just about done, and I really like the look of it. It's starting to look really good. All right, that's about as much as I'm going to do on there. I did go and do the inside a little bit, if you can see that, and then right around, so I just kind of slapped some paint in there using the brush, and I didn't worry about brush strokes on that part because it's on the inside, there's a lot of shadow in there, you can't really see, but you can see a little slight of the green patina, and then right in the little, along the bottom there, right in the crack, I just brushed some more of the rusty color, and then use my finger to sort of smooth it out, and I really like this little area here. It looks just so natural, where some of the green color went inside the groove on this part, and it just sort of gathered in there, just kind of accidentally, but I really like the look that it gave it, and I'm gonna leave it just like this. So this will dry fast because we don't have a lot of thick paint on there, and we're going to set it aside while we work on another part, because this craft is going to be like a watering can that has some bead strands coming out, and we'll have to use some hot glue to help us out there, but I already have 3 of them, so it's going to kind of look like water coming out, but the water is done with beads on transite. So I've got 3 of them done, and I just need 1 more. I know it's got 5 holes on here, but I think 5 is kind of excessive because they can't really spread out enough to make it look like individual strands. At some point it just looks like solid beads, so I just want them to be able to separate a little bit. So I've got these 3 strands already done, and this is just done on this transite right here, and this is fishing wire. It's the same thing, it's just the same as fishing line. It's a plastic string, and so what's nice about it is it doesn't fray on the ends, and when you're working with little tiny beads, that can be really annoying because you have to keep cutting the end whenever your string frays. And I'll show you what I mean. I'll show a different kind of string later that does fray and separate into pieces. It makes it really annoying, hard to work with, but this stuff, you can get a whole bunch of it from the fishing aisle at Walmart. You can get a whole spool of it. I didn't need all that much, but it makes a nice easy knot at the top, and I'll show how I do that, little double knot, and it doesn't go anywhere. And then it allows you to kind of be able to string your beads on there pretty easily because it's a nice, tough, little wiry string. Kind of feels like a cat whisker. And then at the end, I just knot a little bead on there, and I'll show how I do that too. The kind of look I'm going for is like watercolors, so the color of water, white, clear, blue, a little bit of green. So I've got all my beads here. I've got some larger ones that go near the bottom. I've got these little kind of teardrop shaped ones that look like a drop of water, which I'm going to put on the bottom of all the strands. So those will just sit at the bottom to have a little crystally shine. And these are like the medium ones. And then I've got in the seed beads here, which you don't really see being used a whole lot, not like they used to be, but I've got small tiny ones in there. I've got the stick seed beads. This kind of looks like a bar, or almost like a sprinkle, like a jimmy, like that. And then there's these kind of like the medium-sized seed beads right here. So we'll use all of those different ones, but I'll kind of do it in a way where I start with the smallest ones up here, so this looks like it gets bigger as it goes down. Then I'll have those kind of medium-sized ones, and then, as they go down, they just get bigger and bigger and bigger. So let me make the last strand, and then we'll work on getting these glued together and kind of look like it's kind of pouring out of the wiring can. There, so to start off the strand, I'm going to use one of these really small clear seed beads, and just get it on the string. And then what I like to do is loop it back around by going inside the bead, but coming from the opposite way. You might need to get out the magnifying glass for this part. Now these really small ones are kind of hard to work with, but it is nice sometimes when you're working with little small seed beads and things that can roll away, and become hard to see, it's nice to sometimes have a little piece of felt, like some soft fabric, and I'll show why that's important in just a second. So here's that. So I just have it looped around once, which is pretty sturdy, but just to be sure, I am going to do a little double knot, and this stuff does knot very easily. You don't need any super glue or anything like that. The only thing about it is it would be really awesome if you could use this to make bracelets and things like that, but it doesn't have a stretch to it at all, so you need to have a clasp and everything, but it does make a nice easy knot. So if you're going to do a necklace or something with kids, that would be fine, because they can be a little rough with it and they don't have to worry about that. So that's our starting point. So all of our small beads are going to get beaded on first, of course, because, well, we could work from the bottom up, but I just want to work from the small side. So we're starting up here. So I'm going to do a mix of the small seed beads, some of the stick seed beads, and then kind of keep going down. When I feel like I'm about halfway there, start with the other bigger beads. So here's a piece of felt, so I can explain why this is important to have, but sometimes it's nice if you're working with little round beads and stuff, like some of these little small ones, they can kind of roll around, and you might lose them especially if you just pour them right out on the table. But if you set it on this felt, because it's not very flat fabric, it's kind of got some lumps, and I even have this one folded, so it's a little lumpier than it would be, then the beads tend to not really roll around as much. I know some of these are like a square shape, or they have a lot of little, rivets in there and stuff, so these aren't really going to roll that much. If you set them down, they'll find a flat surface and they'll settle. But the round ones, the pearls and stuff, those aren't going to go rolling, so it's nice to kind of set them there so when you're ready to work with them, they don't really go everywhere. Now, here's an example of a string that's going to fray very badly if you try to, put the seed beads on there, or really any bead, because look it's really nice. I mean, this is the one I wanted to use, maybe this one or this in silver, because I just like that if you can see any of the string, it's just a pretty string. But it's got all these little extra pieces in there that kind of separate as you start to kind of twist it. You can see them kind of coming apart, and this is how the end of it will look after a while. So it's really annoying to use something like this because it will separate, though this is a really nice string for other things. So that's why I went with the transite, because it's something that's clear, so that way, if I couldn't have the pretty string that I wanted to look at, I'll go with one that you don't have to look at. So the other thing is, if you do want to use something like this, if you do like this string or you just don't have any others to use, you can get some beading needles. So these are kind of neat because they have a huge eye. So this whole thing from here to there is an eye that will open up if you pull it and separate it like this. I can even get it out of there and show you. Oh, it's stapled together. But this is also very flexible, so it's a really thin, it's almost like not even a needle, it's a piece of wire. Really tough wire. So see how inside here is the eye, so then you can get your string in there, and because it's flexible, you can kind of use it to put your beads on there, and it's a really small little thin piece. So you could use something like this if you're going to be using a string that frays a lot, but we won't be using that this time, so I'll just stick it back in the card and keep working on the transite. Now, it can be kind of hard if you're just trying to pick up the beads with your fingers. Sometimes your fingers will get in the way. So sometimes what I like to do is just sort of put some in my hand and then let this tough string just sort of go find the hole of the bead. And then you can just sort of pop them on. And right now I'm just still holding a few of them in my hand. But the nice thing is, with that little bead knotted on the bottom, your beads aren't going to go anywhere. So this is kind of nice. Just make sure your string is facing the right way, because it'll curl. So sometimes it'll curl more toward one angle than the other, but it'll let you kind of gather up a few beads on there and then just push them down to the bottom as you go. So it's a little easier than trying to worry about picking them up in your hand and getting them on the string. So I think I have enough of the little small ones. So now comes the little bit easier part, because now I'm going to be using these little bit slightly bigger seed beads. And I keep saying seed beads, but you don't have to use tiny beads for this craft. I just wanted to because I like these little tiny ones. So a lot of them are really pretty. The colors are really cool. There's these pearly ones that have the color on the inside and then clear on the outside. And I just think they're really cool and iridescent. And then like this one here, that little kind of a, I don't know, kind of a cloudy blue is really nice. But you could use any bead, of course, any bead you want. And, if you've got like watercolor beads, so that are, a lot of clear, white, blue, things like that. That makes a good color for that. So you definitely don't have to use the tiny, tiny seed beads. Putting a few of these like medium-sized ones on there, just a few. couple of the bigger ones. I like these long, kind of long, I don't know, rectangle shaped ones. And then I think that'll do it. And then I'll just add on the one that's the very last one, which is that teardrop one. There's a lot of really nice little strung beads that you can buy at Michael's and Hobby Lobby and stuff. So that's where I got these. They were just, they sell them on a strand. They're just hanging like this, but a whole bunch of the same kind of beads. So it's nice because they're out of the package. They're not sealed up in a bag or anything. So you can actually feel them and see if they're going to work for what you want. So I'm just, to end it off here, I'm just going to put this tiny little seed bead here. Do the same thing I did in the beginning, which can be a little tricky, but I just like to do this so I have a nice sturdy knot that I know is not going anywhere. It's just an extra little reinforcement. And then I'll do a double knot right there. Sometimes it's nice to cut yourself a little more string than what you're going to be using, because as you can see, it can be a little hard and you don't have a lot of room to get your fingers in there to make the knot. So if you want to just cut it a little bit longer, you know, like I said, this transite stuff is pretty cheap, so you don't have to worry about, you know, trying to use it sparingly. If a few inches will make it a little easier for you to make that knot. So there's that one. And of course, you know, I don't like them to be too tight because I want them to be able to sort of move and sway, and I can cut my little tails off eventually. But now I'm going to just head over to the glue gun and get these kind of secured in place here. You could also use super glue if you don't mind kind of waiting around for a while, which I might end up doing, I'm not sure. But I will get these glued into the into the 4 holes on here. So since I have 4 strands, I'm not going to put one in the middle. I'm just going to glue one here, 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 and here. And then you don't really even need anything to hang it because you have the handle here. So I think it's really cute to just stick it on a little tree branch or something, like a little low-hanging tree branch, and let it just hang, because this is the way it will hang normally, just because, you know, the angle of it and where the handle is on the side. So it's going to sort of hang sideways, and then your little strands of water beads are just going to sort of hang just like they would if this was water. Okay, so now the only thing left to do is just cut off all these little loose pieces at the bottom. Probably don't want to cut them too close to the knot just in case, because, you know, it still is a plastic, and it can, you know, if you cut it a little too close, it might kind of be a little close to cutting the knot. So there it is. So I ended up just kind of tying it in there. I just went into the holes and just secured it on there, so that way they're all kind of connected. And then I took out a branch here just to show how cool it could be to, you know, if you have a little low-hanging branch that you just sort of let your watering can hang just like that. And I really love how this turned into, you know, it was just such a, it could have been cute like this too, but we kind of just went and made it our own by doing it like this with that little fancy aged look on there. And it's pretty cool like that. You could even put, since it hangs this way and it doesn't tip over completely, you know, the weight of this does pull it down a little bit, but you could maybe even put some birdseed in there. That'd be really cool. Just a little bit, you know, for a little bird to stop by and have a snack. I think this one's a really cool one.